Good evening. Welcome everybody. We are glad to welcome you to this new event in the context of a series of webinars entitled Your PhD in France. These events are organized by the embassies and the French institutes in Austria, Czech Republic, Hungary, Poland, and Slovakia. And they have been designed in order to answer all the questions that PhD applicants can have before thinking about applying to one of the French doctoral schools. So tonight, to welcome you on this event, I'm glad to have with me my colleague from Warsaw, Dr. Christophe Paoli.
Hello.
And my colleague from the French Institute in Hungary, Eric Pujol.
Thank you.
This webinar will be composed of two different parts. The first part will be dedicated to two presentations of doctoral schools. And so we are glad to have with us tonight Dr. Eva Todt from Université d'Orléans and CNRS.
Good afternoon.
And Professor Chantal Dédoué from Université de Paris, École doctorale Bio Sorbonne Paris-Cité.
Hello.
After the two presentations of these doctoral schools, we will have a session of question and answers. So for that, in order to ask all the questions you could have and the details you would need, you can use the questions and answer icon at the bottom of your screen on the Zoom panel. Then in the second part, we will have two testimonies of two alumni of the French higher education system. One of them is Professor Pavel Zajdel from the Jagiellonian University.
Good evening, everyone.
And also current doctoral student in Hungarian University and a French University, Csilla Lea Fazekas.
Hello, everyone.
So in order to start our event, I will give the floor to Dr. Eva Todt, and she will present you with the different information you would need. And before she starts, just to remind you that in the chat, you will see a link that is sent to you, so that if you would need any information, general information about the doctoral studies in France, you will find these informations in the link. Dr. Todt, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. So it's a pleasure for me, especially being of Hungarian origin, to talk to you about our doctoral school and our research. So my name is Eva Todt. I'm a CNRS research director in Orléans, and I'm also the head of a research institute called the Center of Molecular Biophysics. So our doctoral school is entitled Health, Biology and Chemistry for Life. Actually, this is a joint doctoral school between the University of Orléans and the University of Tours, but I will mainly focus on the Orléans site. So Orléans is around 100 kilometers south of Paris, so it's in the center of France. It has a particularity in terms of research, and this is the fact that in addition to the university, it also hosts a very big CNRS campus. CNRS gathers over 1,000 research institutions all over France with more than 30,000 scientists. So in the field of life sciences in Orléans at the university and on the CNRS campus, we conduct research in different areas, in different laboratories. So as I said, I will, because I'm the head of the Center of Molecular Biophysics, so I will I will focus on this institute, which works in the fields of biochemistry, biophysics, molecular and cellular biology, and chemistry, as well as imaging. I put the web address for further information if you want. We also have a big institute dedicated to medicinal chemistry and drug discovery, and smaller labs working in the field of immunology and forest biology. The major characteristic of our research is that it's at the interface between chemistry and biology. So I was told to talk to you about funding opportunities concerning our doctoral school. So there are a certain number of scholarships which are directly proposed by the doctoral school. So these are advertised every year, which are available for French as well as for foreign students. Of course, there are also grants which are coming from research projects in different research groups, and very specific opportunity which I wanted to highlight here because it might concern co-tutel thesis is the fact that the regional government provides half fellowships to complete another half grant available from another source, and actually this is really well adapted to collaborative projects. So concerning the research in our institute, it's a real interface laboratory between biophysics, biology, and chemistry. We are working towards a better understanding of biological mechanisms at the molecular level, and really this molecular aspect is a very important feature of our science. So what are we working on? It goes from theoretical biophysics to chemistry, biochemistry, structural biology, molecular biology, cell biology, even exobiology. I will say a word about it in a minute, and imaging. But all this research is focusing on molecules of life or molecules for life. So to put it in a more concrete perspective, here I gathered a certain number of keywords, characteristic of our research. So we are doing exploration of fundamental biological mechanisms such as DNA repair, RNA remodeling, protein nucleic acid interactions, and so on. We are deriving innovative therapies based off antibiotic peptides, cell or gene therapy. We are working on ligands for neural receptors, nucleic acid transfer, or messenger RNA vaccines. We also conduct studies towards cosmetic applications. That's something which is promoted also by the regional government, and this concerns aging, skin models, or tissue regeneration. As I said, there is a particular subject concerning exobiology, which is interested in the origin and early evolution of life. And finally, my own research, which is concerning imaging and the chemistry related to molecular imaging applications. I will say a few words about this in a minute. Our institute is characterized by the presence of a very wide panoply of instrumentation for studies of structure and interaction of biomacromolecules, so more molecular level studies. All equipment necessary for cellular studies as well as for small animal imaging. And this is really a very rich environment to conduct interface studies between chemistry and biology. So just one slide about my own research, which concerns the development of molecular imaging agents for MRI. So here we are interested in bringing morphological MRI, which is characteristic of clinical studies today, to the field of molecular imaging, where we want to characterize the tissues not only from the morphological point of view, but also from a molecular point of view. And for this, you have to develop molecular imaging agents that we can also call smart imaging agents. So what are they? Actually, these are molecules which are injected into the body, and they will give rise to a specific MRI detectable signal only when they meet specific biomarkers. So you can imagine this like an interrupter which lights up only in the presence of this specific biomarker. So coming to more general things, our institute has been involved in many very strong international collaborations for many years. As you see here, we have really a great practice of conducting PhD thesis in co-tutel. I would like to cite two specific links to Poland and Hungary. So we had for many years very strong collaboration with the Faculty of Biochemistry, Biophysics and Biotechnology at the University of Krakow, which was also recognized by the CNRS via the establishment of an international associated laboratory, which was dedicated to the study on biomarkers and mediators of diseases. The second very strong collaboration is going on with the University of Debrecen from Hungary, which is more dedicated to the chemistry of imaging probes. So to finish up on this last slide, I put a list of some points from my personal experience in directing co-tutel thesis. So I have had so far 6 theses in co-tutel. In my opinion, the major conditions to succeed in a co-directed thesis is to have a scientific project which really requires complementary expertise between the two laboratories. Most important is to have a student who is open-minded enough and very flexible. Obviously, it requires more flexibility to jump between two laboratories than to conduct your thesis in a single lab. And I think that ideally the funding should come from 2 countries, but it's not a basic requirement. I think that the major benefits of a co-tutel thesis go certainly for the student because he's exposed to 2 different cultures, also in science, but also in the everyday life. He will have a much wider research experience, so clearly he will acquire more research skills. And finally, you will end up with a much wider professional network at the end of the thesis. Of course, this is also beneficial for the laboratory because a student which goes from one lab to the other will transfer research skills between the 2 groups. And I really believe that this kind of co-directed theses are the best way to for your attention. I don't know if it was long or short.
No, this was perfect. Thank you very much for your presentation. And I remind to our audience that they can ask all their questions all along the webinar using the question and answers device of Zoom. So now we will have a second presentation of the doctoral school, and I will give the floor to Professor Chantal Desoué.
Okay, so hi everyone. So first of all, I introduce myself. I am Chantal Desoué. I am the co-director of the doctoral school Bio-Sorbonne Paris-Cité. And also I am a director of a laboratory that working on liver physiopathology topic. And so to just introduce our doctoral school, this is one of the doctoral school of Université de Paris, and it is one of the larger doctoral school in Paris that attract students from France, but from also other countries, as you will see. So at the moment in our doctoral school, we have the number of theses that are going is 564 theses, with a total number of research teams that is 200. And at last year, we have 121 theses that were defense. So we are working on many topics in this doctoral school. So topics that are developed are development, genetic, immunology, reproduction, aging, infectiology, physiology, physiopathology, molecular biology, cellular biology, and also neurobiology. And we are working, in fact, with a lot of institutes in Paris. Like we have some teams that are working at Institut Pasteur, that is more concentrated on infectious disease, but are working also on the Center of Cardiovascular Research Center, PARC. We are working with Institut Curie on more cancer topic, Institut Imagine that working on genetic disease, Collège de France that is working in many topics, but for example on developmental topic, INEM at Necker Institute that is close to children hospitals that are working also on genetic disease, development and physiopathology, and Institut Cochin, for example, that is working also on physiopathology disease. So to organize all this doctoral school, we are two directors, Caroline Levan-Kim and myself, with we are really helped by two managers, Joanna and Deborah. And in order to provide a simple and effective management to all the PhD students, we have divided our doctoral school in 4 departments that work independently. So the first department takes care about all the topics on cellular and molecular biology and physiopathology. And at the head of this department, there is two professors, Caroline Levan-Kim and Chantal Boulanger. The second department on the topic development, genetic, neurobiology, reproduction and aging. And this is led by myself and Professor Jonathan Westman. The third department on topic infectiology and microbiology, led by Sylvie van der Werf and Professor Alain Charby. And the fourth one concentrates only on immunology. And at the end is Professor Sylvain Latour and Professor Antonino Nicoletti. So each department works with a specific committee that is composed of researchers on the specific topic, and also they are working with elected PhD students. So what is the mission of each department? First of all is the organization of the competition for doctoral contract. Second, this is also the selection of candidates for specific field call for PhD grant, like for example, as I will present later, international grant. We have also a midterm evaluation in the middle of the thesis. We organize also some mediation for PhD students that have some difficulty to perform their project, or difficulty to have some interaction with their laboratory. And also they deliver the authorization for the thesis defense and the validation of the jury composition. So to arrive at the doctoral school, so what we have to organize is, first of all the PhD students may be auditioned before they can register, meaning that all PhD students present in front of a committee the PhD project, just to be sure that it fits with all the topics of our doctoral school. And second, no registration can be made if the applicant does not have funding. So you need, in our doctoral school, but in all doctoral schools in France, to have a funding for 3 years to perform your thesis. And we have also a lot of medical students in our doctoral school. And for the medical doctoral students, they must devote at least 50% of their time to the thesis, and the other 50% go to the hospital. So normally in our doctoral school, it takes around, let's say, 3 years normally to do your PhD, between 3 or 4 years. It depends of your main topic. For example, if you are working on animal models, it takes more longer. And you see for the moment, in the first year of thesis, we have 150 students. In the second year, around 140. Same thing for the third year. We have around 90 students in the 4 years, and very few students in 5 years. Normally, there is no PhD in 5 years, but at this time, with the pandemic situation, there is some students that have some difficulty to finish their thesis, so that's why we have some students in the 5 years. So what is important to do during your PhD is not only your specific project, but also the university is organized specific training for PhD students. That's what we call a portfolio. So this portfolio, you have to validate 100 hours of training. So one third is a cross-disciplinary unit. You choose whatever you want. 1/3 is a scientific unit, and 1/3 is dedicated to professional integration and career development. And we have at the University of Paris a specific training offer that is offered by the College Doctoral School for all the doctoral school of University of Paris. And there is around 200 training and formation that are in French, but also in English. And you can find here the link to connect. Also, I will go directly to the defense. So in our doctoral school, to get your PhD, you need to have at least 1 publication in a first or co-first author, and you need also to validate the training of portfolio. So what is very important is in all the students that we have in our doctoral school, we have around 120 international students. And these students can have specific contract. So first of all, they can have they can go to the minister contract, so they can apply each year to the specific contract that are in June. But there is also specific call for international contract at the University of Paris, specific call for international students. So you can really apply to this type of application. And I want also to finish with co-tutel. If you are interested with co-tutel, we have also co-tutel at the University of Paris, and there is a specific committee that organize all the co-tutel and the funding for the co-tutel. So you can send me some mail, and then I will give you the contact for a specific co-tutel. And I want to thank you, and if you have any question, I can answer to your question.
So thank you very much for your presentation. So far, we had no questions. So we still remind the audience that they can ask their questions during the question and answers device on the Zoom application. And you still have time to do that until the end of the webinar, so we can come back to the questions to the doctoral schools if required. Maybe just a question for the 2 doctoral schools. How do you advertise the PhD offers that you have? Do you have some calls that are available for international students, for example?
So I can answer for University of Paris. So each year there is a specific call at this moment in February for all the University of Paris. So it's a specific call for international students. So you can find that on our website of University of Paris. And there is around 15 grants that are really dedicated to international PhD students. And for the call from the minister, you can also, if you are a foreign student, you can apply to this kind of contract also. But it is better to come in France for your Master 2 degree, to perform your Master 2 degree in France. It will be easier to get this type of contract because you will be already included in a French lab for your Master 2 training.
Well, concerning our doctoral school, the grants which are funded by the ministry or by the regional government are all advertised on the site of the doctoral school, and they are open as well as to French as to foreign students. There is absolutely no distinction between French and foreign students. As in Paris, I did not talk about this, but everybody is interviewed by visio means, so it's not necessary to come to France, but there is always an oral interview before the selection. Really, there is really no distinction between French or foreign students in order to get a scholarship from the doctoral school. Concerning funding from research projects of the research teams, that's maybe less visible for foreign students. I don't know if somebody will talk about the ABG, which is a national platform for advertising all contracts for PhDs. I would really encourage everybody to consult this because you have the whole selection and all the opportunities of PhD grants available all over in France. So that's probably the best platform.
And what you can do also, you can contact some French laboratory, and they can have some specific funding from a PhD grant, for example. From the ANR, Agence Nationale for the Research. There is specific on the package that you get to get your project. You can pay a PhD student, so you can really directly contact laboratory on specific topics that you are interested and see if they have specific funding for a PhD.
Okay, so we have two questions. One is quite easy to answer. Do students have to pay university fees?
Yes.
So there are two possibilities. One possibility, you're a full-time PhD in France, and in this case, you have to pay the university fees that are like 380 euros per year, and that's the same price in all the universities of France. And the second possibility is you are a mobility student, for example, doing a joint PhD, co-tutelle, as we call them. And in this case, you pay the tuition fees in your home universities, and you shouldn't pay them in the country or in France where you go to study. But this will depend on the agreement in between the two universities and the way it will be written.
Actually, in a normal case, at least in our university, the agreement is proposing the choice between paying the fees in France or in the other university. But usually it's cheaper, at least in my experience, it was always cheaper, even if it's not very high in France. But usually students chose to pay their tuition fees in their country of origin. But at least here you have the choice between paying in France but you only have to pay once.
And we have also another question from Jakub. Can I apply for a normal PhD funding in France to fund my co-tutelle, or it needs to be a specific call?
No, it needs to be a specific call. It's really a specific call, and normally it's more a grant that the two laboratory get, and not a research contract from the minister.
Well, actually, as I showed in my presentation, for us, there is a specific opportunity by the regional government who is providing half grants. And actually, international collaborations are favored because there is also a competition for those half scholarships. But usually, international collaborations are really favored with respect to other types of projects.
So the answer will be that it's specific and that you will have to check on your two laboratories. And the second possibility is that all the embassies provide some French government scholarship, and they can support joint PhD in co-tutelle. So it means that for this, it is a possibility to have a funding from the French embassies to have the mobility period in France during the course of your PhD. So for that, you should go and ask your Campus France office in your country of origin. So thank you very much for these questions and answers. And now I will give the floor to my colleague Christophe for the second half of this event.
Many thanks, Sébastien, Eva, and Chantal for this first part. So it's my pleasure now to moderate the second part of the webinar today, and to be, of course, to be connected with all of you. So I am delighted now to give the floor to Professor Paweł Zajdel from Jagiellon University in Kraków, Poland. So Paweł is currently a joint supervisor in a co-tutelle program, and is also a former co-tutelle PhD student with France. So he has a strong cooperation experience with our country, and for example, with the University of Montpellier, University of Clermont-Auvergne, and CNRS as well. So, dear Paweł, I know you have prepared a very dynamic presentation for our audience, and the floor is yours.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. I will share my presentation with you. I hope it is correct. Could you please just confirm?
Yes.
Okay. Just before I will start presentation, so let me introduce us a bit more. Thanking, of course, Christophe for the nice words. I would like to add that as a professor, I think I could still, as a young professor, I could still recognize some demands and wishes and needs of students, of PhD students, and also young researchers. Before going on, let me just mention one opportunity to search for certain financial support for directly from the chief of research groups at different French universities, and using Twitter. So there are many such informations, many such options. So just you are a user of Twitter, so you could quickly recognize your leading researcher, your potential group leader, to initiate discussion on this issue. I think I will start with some my thoughts how it was a couple of years ago, not far away. However, it was almost, when I recognized it was almost 20 years ago, that I was thinking how to change my activity, how to rise my scientific experience in peptide science and in medicinal chemistry. And the first thing I started was, of course, searching for the persons, for professors, for researchers who would be my who might be my guru, who might be my boss, who use cutting-edge methodologies in the research. So you will have probably the same as thoughts. During the search, I recognized that certain groups of interest are located in France. So that was the point. Okay, what are the options to find in the area that Poland was not in the European Union to perform the PhD abroad? One of the easiest way in that time was co-titel. So nowadays my previous speakers recognize the different options to support scientific research. However, in certain time that was the co-titel supported by the French embassy. So thinking about leaving to study abroad, for me was also somehow the incentive to recognize how does the research looks like in Western countries, how it looked like from the perspective of south of Europe, how it looked in case of Montpellier, how it looked, how does the academic cooperation look like, and also how is the academic and industrial world connected to create and to provide a better science. Because that was, for me, that was only the theory. For me personally, the stay in France was somehow a breakthrough, because I really find the answers how it make work in a good way. On the other hand, taking advantage of my somehow experience in carrying out in supervising this PhD thesis, but taking also advantage of the time I was PhD student performing the co-titel thesis. So here I want to repeat once again that the most important thing is the complementary experience of two supervisors. Is there common will? Is there common interest? Also good communication between them, because the way how a PhD candidate and then the PhD student enters the two group is highly important. To see, it is important to see as somehow a win-win situation for students when there is a good collaborative approach that people recognize themselves correctly. So I think one of the points very important to start the PhD is the thinking about the readiness to undertake developing of scientific hypotheses, to provide rational arguments, trying to set different experiments. Sometimes those experiments that supervisors do not recognize. Those are the working with two different teams gives, I think, very positive aspect. You could advertise yourself, taking advantage of your skills between those two groups. So I've mentioned about the readiness to writing a patent application and manuscripts, because as you have seen in one of professors who presented the timeline of the PhD, in France it is 3 years. In Poland it is 4 years. Probably in most of the Eastern countries. So I think the time frame must be very respectfully kept. So to my expertise and to my experience, I really had some important supportive support from administration. So just you think about going to France for PhD, don't worry about the administrative issues. This is not, everything you will do, you will do it for your future, and the administration is not the problem in that matter. Don't think about the administration. Think about the positive outcomes. Just as somehow an add-on point regarding the financing opportunities, I'd like to stress that there are some university alliances who were created 2 years ago, like Europa, Charm, EC2U Circle, that you could additionally ask for some support, maybe not for the mobility support, however, for research. Additionally, there are certain supportive agencies created at certain universities who support research, some created in France, but also to my experience in Krakow. So there is a somehow excellence initiative university that is giving substantial financial support for research. In my case, carrying out the PhD in Montpellier with Professor Martinez gave me advantage of creating an international interdisciplinary platform that I try to integrate, and I hope I could integrate using which this group integrates people from different disciplines, from in silico pharmacology, behavioral pharmacology, chemistry, medicinal chemistry, some in vitro, important in vitro pharmacology. And this net of people is comprised of Polish universities, Polish research centers, by also University of Montpellier, University of Clermont-Ferrand, Institute of Functional Genomics, also from Montpellier, CNRS, and INSERM. Our goal is to create a certain hypothesis involving distinct targets to treat CNS-related diseases like psychosis, depression, neurodegeneration. The most important thing in all the collaboration are people. So when I imagined that there are, of course, certain professors, however, their responsibility is moved to PhD students. So you are really invited by all the groups that you could, of course, join. The obligatory point is to take skills to present data using different devices. Finishing, let me thank all the people engaging in this collaboration that I cooperate on, all the founding institutions. Thank you for invitation, and I keep fingers crossed for our young colleagues that they could really recognize France and French universities as a good opportunity for their PhD. Thank you.
Many thanks, Paweł. Thanks again. And if I was a student with a project of a PhD program in France, so I immediately contact you. And so please stay with us for the questions of the audience. And just before this Q&A session, we will have an interview with Mrs. Cila Fazekas, who is currently participating in a joint PhD program between the University of Paris 1, Panthéon-Sorbonne, and the Semmelweis University in Hungary. And so I let the floor now to Eric, my colleague from Campus France, for this interview with Sheila. Eric?
Thank you, Christophe.
And Sheila.
So now, well, Sheila, you will share with us your PhD experience in France, and thank you for joining us tonight. And first, just a basic question. Could you tell us about yourself and your research project, for example?
Yes, so welcome everyone, and thank you very much for this opportunity. As it has been mentioned, I'm currently a PhD student enrolled in Hungary in the Doctoral School of Semmelweis University, but I work at the Institute of Experimental Medicine. But here in France, I work at a laboratory at the Sorbonne University. I'm researching the neuronal basis of behavior, especially social behavior, learning and memory formation. The main concept of my thesis is to do complementary research in the two countries to provide data that strengthen each other, and they provide a robust statistical outcome.
Well, that's interesting. So just could you explain to us why did you choose to apply in PhD in France, and what did influence your decision to apply specifically in a PhD in France?
The situation with my thesis topic is that it's not a mainstream area of neuroscience. Because I'm actually studying a very rare and a complicated type of neuron population in a brain area which is not known at all, not even in the scientific field. So the literature and the advisors that can help me to understand my topic and to work on it is very much limited. However, we were lucky to find this French laboratory I'm working in right now, who share a common interest with us in both the brain area and both the neuron type. So from the very beginning, it was obvious for my supervisors that they wanted to collaborate, and by sharing a PhD student, so to say, it enabled us to come up with a more complex and more elaborate study design.
Oh, okay. So just about the procedure. So was it easy to apply to a PhD in France, or did you find any difficulties? And moving to France to conduct your project was difficult or was made easy for you? What could you tell us about that?
Mm-hmm. I would say it was relatively easy. I'm funded by the Hungarian Campus France and the Campus Foundation financially, and they readily answer all my questions very quickly. However, I know that this is very much region specific, how the students are funded and how much help they get. So it's something everyone has to go after themselves. If I have to say, the hard part with the application is actually still ongoing here in France with the administration processes at the French university, which actually can't really be helped by anyone. And of course, this pandemic situation isn't helping at all.
Yeah, we understand it. It could be complicated, but yeah, you will manage eventually. So, is there something you wish you have known before you started your doctoral studies, specifically in France?
Yes, well, knowing the language is a huge advantage, but unfortunately that's a mistake I would have to go back to my high school days to correct. And also, as I have mentioned, administration processes here in France I found generally slower than in Hungary, and that's something doesn't worth stressing over, because in the end, it's going to be all right. It just takes them extra steps.
Yes. And could you tell us how did you get to meet your French supervisor? Did you want to work specifically with that person, or how did this happen?
It was actually a fortunate meeting. My Hungarian supervisor was asked to review one of the research articles of the French group, and that's how we found each other. They immediately wanted to collaborate. As I've mentioned before, our topic is very rare. So if we want something big to do in the terms of research, it's best if we collaborate. So first we wanted to do a French-Hungarian travel grant between the two groups that would have enabled few of the students and workers to go between the two groups. But then this joint PhD opportunity came up, which, as I mentioned, lets us do a lot more in a longer time.
All right. So just a last question to close this interview. Could you explain to us what are benefits for you of doing research in France, and why it was interesting as an international student to be mobile during this particular time of your studies, and why specifically why in France?
So this is a relatively new trend that doing work abroad and to be mobile is very much advised and supported not only by the grant providers or journals. International and interdisciplinary works are very much favored nowadays. It also lets you to experience very different laboratories and environments. So as I don't know how much others know, but protocols and techniques, machines, and the way of thinking differs between labs very much, even just two labs working next to each other in the same institute. And so it's obvious that two laboratories, 3 countries apart, work very, very much differently. And the more you know of these, more protocols, more techniques, the better workforce you can be in the future, and the easier it will be for you to find a job later on as a postdoc or as a researcher in the industry. That's why it is generally advised to do some studies abroad. In Hungary, there's this unfortunate situation that during your bachelor and master's studies, you're not really able to get too much practical experience. All you have to pick up is during your PhD. And thus, this is basically the only time you can do this. As in quite particular in France, because France is, well, a very good situated country. So of course, the laboratories can allow themselves to not worry about money, but do a quality work, both in the sense of equipment and mentality. So there's time, there is money here, and you don't really have to worry about the smaller details. You can concentrate on actually doing a proper work than to think about how to allow financially all the stuff you want to do.
Okay, so thank you for this very thorough answer. And I think I will leave the floor to Christophe now for the question and answer session.
Thank you very much, Ilan, Eric, for this nice interview. So it's time now to turn to the audience for the question and answer session. All the panelists are ready to answer to your question. And so I remind you that there is a Q&A box at the bottom of your screen that you can use to ask a question. So unfortunately, at this time, we have no question. I look at my screen, there is no question. Maybe panelists want to ask question to other panelists. It can be an idea. I don't know if Chantal and Eva want to ask a question to Pavel or Sheila or the opposite. I don't know. It's maybe an idea waiting for a question from the audience.
Or maybe I can you, yes. I would have a question to Sebastian and to you, maybe to explain us the mechanism of the embassies to contribute to financially to a joint PhD thesis. So if, for example, if we have a research project with a Hungarian PhD already enrolled in Hungary, so what we should do, is there a specific time to ask for the scholarship from the embassy, or how is it organized?
If I can answer for both of us and also for the three other partner embassies, each embassy has its own timeline and deadlines. Meaning that, for example, for Hungary, we will accept applications for scholarships of the French government till the end of February. So deadline on the 28th of February. The PhD applicant must follow the instructions that are present on our Campus France Hungary website. So he has to send us his application with research project, CV, and transcripts of records and so on. And then there will be in March some interviews with all the applicants. And then we will select them and we'll give some answers in April or May, so that then the two universities can start the administrative procedure in order to build up the co-tutel agreement. Actually, for the application, we don't need yet the co-tutel agreement. We just need a form in which the two supervisors are agreeing in order to involve in a joint PhD, and so that they can provide at least some schedule for the mobility periods and the stays in France and in the home country, and with that we are able to make a selection. And each embassy has its own strategy, let's say, and number of available scholarships. So the best for any applicant is to contact the Campus France office in Hungary, Poland, Czech Republic, Slovakia, or Austria, and Slovakia.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Advocating to this note, so I may say that Polish system of PhD lasts for 4 years, when the French one is 3 years. So I could find somehow a complementarity, because just the PhD student is at the doctoral school in Poland, and if granted with a 5 years track, he could then 4 years track. He could then easily ask to French embassy, first easily, I mean, preparing his dossier, etc. Okay, so he could ask for 3 years fellowship to continue the co-tutel. It means that in this frame time, he finishes his PhD in 4 years in Poland and 3 years track in France. So I think it is quite, for students, it is quite attractive, because they do not prolong the educational system. On the other hand, I think that So that student who is granted by the PhD in Poland is somehow a labeled one, so to be pre-selected for the doctoral schools in France.
Yeah.
So it means it looks rational for me. Thank you.
Okay, so thank you for your comments. Christophe, there is no more question. It's time for us to close the webinar.
Okay, so
maybe you can announce the next webinar you will organize tomorrow evening.
Yeah, tomorrow we have a very nice seminar about artificial intelligence applied to environment, with almost the same format, with a presentation of doctoral schools in this field, and also testimony of PhD student and former PhD student also. And so it's still time to apply, but maybe it's not the same audience as today. So so it's, as Sebastian said, it's time now to close the event. And thank you again to all the participants, so the speakers, Eva, Chantal, Powell, and Chila, for their excellent contribution. Thank you very much also to our audience, and for the question we received, few tonight, but because maybe because the presentation was clear. Thanks you also to Sebastian and Eric from the French Embassy in Hungary for the logistic and technical support and hosting this online event. So as you know, the seminar has been recorded, and so we will push as soon as possible the video on the web pages of Campus France. So now I'm Eric, I think maybe is going to share with us the contact information of the Campus France offices of our 5 countries, with the email address and the address of the website. So of Austria, Czech Republic, Hungary, Poland, and Slovakia. And so it's time to wish you a pleasant evening. Bye bye. Bonsoir.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a nice evening, and you find all the necessary data on this last slide. Have a nice evening. Bye.
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 Bye.